Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call the July 23rd, 2019 Planning Board meeting to order. May you please rise and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the first item on the agenda, and actually prior to that, I'm adding item D under other board business will be a brief public comment. Okay, item 1. Subdivision stormwater regulations, and this is an edit. A public hearing on adopting newly proposed stormwater management regulations. Please strike the inner residential A zone. That's a foible of cut and paste and the new Microsoft Word, which is not friendly. At this time, I'll open the public hearing on adoption of these new regulations.
Jim, would you like me to go through the general purpose
I
and
was
then the
just-
minor changes?
I was just going to say,
Okay.
now that it's open,
Sure. So
full overview.
the planning board has been working on the stormwater regulation updates. Similar changes were made to the site plan regulations a few months back. It's to basically meet some of the requirements of the federal MS4 permit for stormwater. This would apply to all subdivisions of land within Newton if it's adopted. Effectively, it is going to completely remove what is section 823, which is your stormwater management regulations right now, and replace it with, this is based off of a model ordinance developed by the Southeast Watershed Alliance. It's actually named in the MS4 stormwater permit as meeting their requirements. And from the last time the board voted to move this to public hearing, we had a couple of very minor changes. I'm just going to quickly go through those. So on line 106 and 107, we had a small indentation that was made. On line 168, we just added a comma and a space to just clarify the statement. On line 192, we changed the reference that said see table 1 to appendix A, which is actually what the reference is intended to go. That's the table at the very back of the document. On line 247, we just changed the section number to the correct reference. So that is 823, it previously said 723. And then the biggest change, and it wasn't really a change, it was just a clarification, is the last line on line 417 and 418. And that's just adding the statement to specifically call out that the landowner shall bear all costs associated with such inspections, and that's referring to any inspections that the town would have to conduct because proper reporting and submittals had not been produced, that the inspections shall be bared on the landowner expense. And then just the RSA reference. That was already stated in a few previous sections, but just to make the point incredibly clear. One of the questions I had gotten was where's the sizing for some of this drainage analysis coming in? So I just wanted to pull that out for folks. One of the big ideas behind this is that you can't increase the drainage off of a site from pre-development. It can't increase to post-development. So if there naturally is runoff, which there are on most sites, that volume can stay, but you can't have any increase from any impervious surface or any buildings that are put on the property or any changes in topography. So the volumes that comes out from is actually starting on line 155 and going down through line 162, which actually gives you the runoff curves that you have to use as part of the analysis for the post-drainage runoff. So post-construction, what is the volume of water coming off? That's usually done as part of your drainage analysis that you receive with any site plan. There are a few components in the stormwater regulations for smaller projects, but effectively you're trying to not have that pre-runoff be different than the post-runoff. I'm sorry, the other way around, the post-runoff be different than the pre-runoff.
That's the one paragraph that most of us looked at and went, okay,
It,
it doesn't make sense. But it's the type of language that any engineer,
yeah, and this is taken almost verbatim from alteration of terrain permits, and the table that's at the back is the table that's in the DES Stormwater Manual Volume 2, that any alteration of terrain permit that's submitted has to meet that criteria as well, so.
and because of the way we worded the regulation, if Appendix A does change in the future, we don't have to go back and change the text, we simply have to change the appendix.
Correct. It would reference whatever new manual DES may come out with in the future.
Does the board have any comments to make at this time?
Just a clarification for me, please, on, so if a new road was going in through here, and they were sizing they were blocking a stream, or, there's a stream, seasonal stream, whatever. Is this what they're using to size that, whatever it ends up being, a box culvert,
That depends a little bit of whether or not they're going to require a wetlands permit or not. So that does have to deal with the sizing. If they are simply doing a driveway culvert, or if there's a spur off of the new road for something, then this would be part of the sizing.
part of, okay.
But it's the overall site and the locations where the runoff is coming off. So there's a lot of variables in there, but effectively, yes, they are sizing it for that storm event and to deal with that volume of water and whatever size they need to do for that volume of water and the storm water techniques that they are choosing to implement.
Okay, yeah, that explains that. The other one, I'll just, if you jump over to line 248, when they talk about the sizing and include sizing of emergency overflow structures, they base it on the same 100-year flood discharge. So how does it become an emergency if it's designed for the same 100-year as the other ones are, or am I reading that?
That is partially a conveyance and partially a sizing. So if a detention basin needs to have a spill, that they're dealing with the volume of the 100-year storm and it's able to be captured, but at a certain point that catch basin or that detention basin needs to be able to overflow to someplace because you can't calculate for, say, a 500-year storm. So it deals a little bit with that component of it, and I'll admit that has reached my engineering sort of level of expertise.
Okay, all right. So essentially,
But your town engineer has reviewed this, so, and your site plan regulations.
okay. So essentially, it's designed the same way, it's just giving it an alternative path that doesn't do destruction, essentially. The same thing I do want to, okay. And it's,
Anything further?
oh, that was it, thanks.
Any errors or omissions? Okay. Any public comment on the stormwater regulations? Please come up to the podium and state your name.
Hi, Alicia Galen. I'm a member of the Conservation Commission. Under 8.2.3, the Stormwater Management Plan, where it's talking about what has to be submitted and where these following conditions are present, the disturbed environmentally sensitive areas and disturbed critical areas, are those defined someplace so people will know what those are?
They are not specifically, but typically it would be wetlands. If Newton had prime wetlands, that would be something else. If we knew that there was Blanding's turtles habitat.
Yeah, so I just was, where it's not defined, I always think it's good, someone who deals with regulations, the more you can have everything in there, or at least directly refer to something, it makes it easier for folks, so there's no misunderstanding. So I would encourage the board to specify what you mean by environmentally sensitive areas or critical areas, or at least refer to as defined by someplace else.
Exactly what line were you on?
I'm looking at 26 and 28 on page 1.
Those are the regulations that are actually going to be removed. So anything in the italicized text is going to be removed.
Yeah, everything up to
Oh,
61 is going to go away.
All
and
right,
be replaced with this other.
I misunderstood, okay.
You're not the only
Yeah,
one.
starting on line 64 is the new.
Thank you. I just got this right when I walked in, so,
Your point is very well taken, though. I have to agree it's better to define.
How, so, the point you brought up, so in the changes, or in the new 8.2.3, without me trying to find it, do we kind of have the same language?
You don't specifically have critical areas the way that is worded. You do have protect groundwater resources, surface water bodies, and wetlands. So it's a little bit more specific than just saying critical areas, of which wetlands would typically be considered critical areas. It also allows a little bit of flexibility. So that's one of the things when you go through a wetlands permit, as an example, it does have to go through a natural heritage inventory database. And so if they do find a spotted turtle or a Blanding's turtle or some other endangered or sensitive species, that gets pulled into it, and that would give you the ability to actually increase your standards, because remember, these are the minimum, not the maximum. You have to have a reason to increase your standards, but that would be a very reasonable reason why you'd increase the standards.
And this also brings us linguistically into compliance with the state and the federal MS4s. The previous language was not up to snuff for them.
Do you have that line, like offhand? Like
The one I was just talking-
82, 87?
The
or-
line I just read was line 92.
Oh, okay.
It's under purpose and goals, to protect the quality of groundwater resources, surface water bodies, and wetlands.
Oh, okay, okay.
Our regulations don't specifically talk about protecting endangered species habitat.
Well, specifically for wildlife habitat, no. It talks about habitats that are considered more essential, but you can have you can have wildlife considerations in your regulations. I would do that beyond the scope of a stormwater regulation, though, if that was something that the planning board wanted to consider. And I would work with the Conservation Commission to work on that.
That would kind of come in, I guess, with natural heritage, when they got involved.
Well, that's one of the reasons that all the boards try to work together. If you notice, she's not here this evening, but we have somebody who serves on the planning board that's also on the conservation. We have somebody from the building department also on the planning board.
But I would also recommend that if you want to do more wildlife protections specifically, or further your wetlands protections, that is better done through zoning ordinance than through site plan regulations. And there's a
Yeah.
couple of different ways to do that, but
Any further comments?
So it would be, I understand that, you know, protecting wildlife, you know, I hear what you're saying, but it would be nice if there was a requirement, if you were subject to this stormwater bylaw, that you had to do the New Hampshire endangered, the data check on at the natural heritage, to just find out if you're in if your project is in rare species habitat. Have you thought about doing that?
I understand what you're saying. I think that's more something that we should put into zoning, that if you're doing any development in the town of Newton, you should, you know, not just it's not just
Not
part of
just the
stormwater
stormwater,
management,
yeah.
because it's not just amphibious critters.
Sure, sure. I was just thinking of it in terms of, yeah, just one more thing to check. But, that-
related to that, that may be something better put in as its own category in site plan or subdivision regulations, rather than putting it within the stormwater. It could also be its own check, and it also could be in zoning to reinforce that, but
Yeah, by putting it in separately, those people that might look at this and go, oh, I don't meet the criteria of stormwater management. Flip
Yeah,
through
yeah.
the pages for, you know, the next thing that I might
Right.
have to do.
Sure. The only thing that I would just want to leave you to think about is, if a project that is subject to this was in rare species, would you want to, would that be would the higher protection, more stringent protection. So that would be done through not through the stormwater, but through the subdivision regulations, what you're saying. It's like if you're in natural heritage territory, you're gonna be, we'd be raising the bar for any development where you're in rare species habitat, under the zoning subdivision.
So there are two things. I think that if, an application comes in tomorrow, and the only thing they've done is adopt these stormwater regulations. Any regulation under site plan or subdivision regulations are considered the minimum standards. If there's a reason on any particular application to increase those standards, and it has to pass sort of a reasonable test, admittedly, the planning board could put some higher restrictions on it if there were endangered species on the property. Alternatively, the planning board could also choose to add some requirements of, you have to have the natural heritage check, or you need to do certain things if endangered species are found. They could adopt that as an independent site plan or subdivision regulation, sort of like they're adopting potentially the stormwater regulations. So for that option, I would want to work with the Conservation Commission to get their
And I'm
input.
just remembering it's been several months since I was here to hear you all talk about this, but back then it was that, so the stormwater bylaw stormwater regulations are only applying to subdivisions. So if there was just any other disturbance of more than 5,000 square feet, if it wasn't part of a subdivision, then this would not apply. Am I understanding that correctly?
So for site plans, that has already been adopted, and it's got for any disturbance greater than the 5,000 square feet.
Okay.
So that's any non-residential use that would come before the town. New or redevelopment. For this would apply to any subdivision that would have either potentially a large parking lot, if it was a commercial property, or if it was a residential subdivision building a road. It would
So
apply
like
to only the
a Form
road.
A lot type situation where they were disturbing more than 5,000 square feet would not.
Not on a single-family residential lot, no.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay. Any further comments?
Reminder for me, without digging through it, does this, because I've read a few different ones, reference all applicable, permits, wetlands? Does this ordinance reflect it, or?
That is more of a blanket condition of any approval, and it is in your site plan and in your subdivision regulations that you need to get all applicable
Yeah.
permits at the federal, state, or local levels.
Okay, so anytime, even though it's not mentioned maybe in this, if the project is disturbing wetlands, stuff like that, they're gonna have to go through those.
Yep, if it needs a wetlands permit, an alteration of terrain permit, EPA NIPDES permit for disturbance, it would have to still get all of those permits. Your approval, and this has been what you've historically done, is conditioned upon receipt of those permits and noting them on the plan. So,
Because remember, this is just one
Yeah,
minor aspect of what you have to do to go through to submit a site, to submit a subdivision.
Yeah, there's an awful lot more
Yeah.
involved in. You can run afoul of a dozen endangered species and never touch the water. So there's a lot of stuff.
yeah. Okay, I think that kind of maybe answers some of what they were asking.
Any further questions or comments? Anything further from the general public? Hearing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed, and at this time, I will accept a motion on adopting
So moved.
the regulations. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Is there any further discussion? Any commas that need to be changed, any periods, semicolon? Okay.
Everyone looks at Roger.
I'm sorry, I actually appreciate Roger's grammatical study of documents because he usually catches things that even I miss, which is rare. In that case, hearing no more questions or comments, all those in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous.
I have sent the clean copy of this to planning office just to be reflected in the new subdivision regulations so we can get those new ones.
Yes, now that the two stormwater sections are done, I will actually put them in, and people will get new copies. I'm not reprinting the entire books.
Thank you.
Yeah, the trees don't have to die so that we can look things up. Okay, item 2, you have at your plate, Barbara passed out for me. 125 Development Court requested that they be placed on the next agenda, not this evening.
And what's that date?
The next meeting is August 13th or 11th?
Yeah, August 13th.
Thank you.
August
Will it-
30th?
Is everything in, so it will be, we know that it will be that day?
But we can't even discuss that.
Okay.
Jim, if I may, just want to offer, if there are questions about any of the regulations or the process, I am happy to answer questions, if that will be of any help.
Okay. They're here for something different.
I know, but
Okay.
I'm just,
Moving right along to item 3, acceptance of the minutes of 6/25/19. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
I have a question.
Sure.
On the bottom of page 1, it says that Mr. Hamel moved to take jurisdiction of the lot line adjustment. Then if you move to page 2, about 2/3 of the way down, it says, Mr. Hamel moved to take jurisdiction of the lot line adjustment. I think the second one is supposed to be for the subdivision application.
We did it
You-
in
no.
two, we did it in two parts.
Right, and
No,
the
and
fir-
I
so we
think
did,
you're right.
the
That's
first
lot
one, we
line
did the
adjustment.
lot line adjustment, I think that's right.
Okay.
And then later, we did the subdivision, I think that's where,
Correct.
about 2/3 down where it says that I moved, it said that I moved to take jurisdiction of the plan for the, again, it says for the line adjustment where it should say subdivision.
Yes.
Plan.
Yes. Thank you, thank you.
Okay. Any other errors or omissions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Oh, wait a minute, did you have a change?
No.
Oh, okay.
So we're moving to approve as changed. We're voting on to approve as changed.
Right.
Okay.
That's why I'm asking, are there any other errors or omissions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
All right.
Thank you. Item next are the manifests. We have an operating manifest in the amount of $537.30. That is for telephone, postage, and our copier contract.
Move to pay.
Second.
Thank you. Notice nobody's asking about the copier contract. Oh, I just realized that I'm doing this inversely, because next thing we have to do is sign the copier contract. Like we have any choice in the matter. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
All right.
That's unanimous. We have a NEPR expense manifest in the amount of $143.85, and that is for butter notices on our previous 2 public hearings.
Move
I
to
have
pay.
Move to pay.
Thank you. Second? Mr. White, thank you. Any further comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Next item is under correspondence, and I should have flipped them when I did the manifest. We have the Century Copier Specialist, it's the maintenance contract on the copier out back. It's $460. Can I have a motion to sign?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
So what does that cover?
They actually supply us with toner, and if anything goes wrong with it, they come and fix it.
So that pays for all the toner all year?
Yeah, we go through like one, maybe two cartridges of toner.
We should kill more trees.
No,
No,
no.
we didn't hear you say that.
Wait till I do my next timber sale, then we can kill them.
I mean, this is based on 15,000 copies per year.
Oh, okay.
Which we really don't hit. They supply repair parts, maintenance kit with the drum, toner developer, circuit boards if needs be. They have been very good at showing up when, they actually ran over one day because I put something in while I was covering for Gail. I put something in the machine, hit copy, and it kept spitting out blank sheets. The toner was completely gone.
Oh, wow.
And nobody in the building had a one of the problems in town is we have multiple copiers, no two take the same cartridge.
Right.
So there's a motion. Is there any further question on it? Okay, all those in favor of having the chair sign it?
All right,
That's unanimous. And lastly, under correspondence, actually, second to lastly under correspondence, we have received a request from the State Department of Safety, Division of Motor Vehicles, on Frank's Repair Service, is looking to have a motorcycle inspection station. I'd like a motion to have the chair sign it once I've gone through and verified the information.
I was gonna say, what information are they, what are we signing?
We've done many of these over the
Right.
year. It's saying that they're in properly zoned space, that they ask if there are any restrictions. I would find all those on their site
Right.
plan.
Right.
It's this,
They
it's
already,
basically the
they
same.
already
as
inspect
being-
cars, right?
Yeah,
They
they're
already
still-
inspect cars,
right,
they want to
right.
add
So it's
motorcycles.
basically the same.
Yeah, okay.
So it's sort of a approval for the chair to sign it and for it to be returned.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Second, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
All right,
That's unanimous. And the one final thing under correspondence is I did go last week on Tuesday and got the FEMA flood map. Jen, help me with that. It has a
Updates?
strange name, flood zone maps.
Yep, they're the updated flood zone maps. They just
Which
reflect
is
current
something, it's a
precipitation.
process FEMA is going through to produce new ones. I represented the town on the last cycle of these. They are out back. You can take a look at them. I showed them to conservation. In Newton, there's not an awful lot that's changed. Some small areas, mostly down by the Newton-Plastow town line, where the outline shifted. It's to be expected. But if anybody wants to see them, you can stop during regular business hours and look at the maps to your heart's content. Nothing further under correspondence. At this point, it's an unusual thing, but we have some guests here who would like to say something to the board from a company called Spinning Wheels. I'm sorry, Jason Clark. You want to come up to the microphone and introduce yourself that way, so.
My name is Jason Colaccio. I'm the president and owner of a company called ADCO Incorporated. It's a third-party logistics firm. It's been around for 41 years. And I have a trucking company that falls under this company called Spinning Wheels Express. Recently, our current terminal where we operate my fleet in North Andover, Massachusetts, was purchased by Amazon, and we are being evicted by the end of the year. As a result of that, over the last several months, we've been searching diligently. Neil McIsaac, my director of operations, and my commercial real estate, Bruce Lee, are also here with me. They've been researching 20 or so properties over the last 6 months, and we've narrowed it down to a few. And a particular piece of property in Puzzle Lane at your Southern New Hampshire Industrial Park is at the top of our list, quite frankly. We're looking and hopefully to lease space there on a 20,000 square foot building that's currently being constructed until a larger 30,000 square foot constructed building adjacent to it is completed, at which point I'm hoping to purchase it. I am here representing the company because I have 30 drivers and 16 office staff and their families that are relying on me to make a good decision for my company. And we're nearing the point of where I have to start committing this company and myself in funds to move the project along. So I wanted to introduce ourselves, make sure that the board was very clear on what my company is going to be doing at that location and how we operate. And with that in mind, Neil has a handout that he'd like to just give you that's just a brief overview of the company and our operations. And then he's going to speak directly to our fleet operations. And this is just to get you to know us and how we operate and what we plan on doing. And quite frankly, if there is any pushback or you don't want us as a resident of your town, I would prefer to know it now, or not now, but in the very near future, rather than go down a path where I've committed money and funds and purchased, and then I can't get an occupancy permit. That's my worst nightmare, okay? So I'm hoping to clarify who we are and address any concerns that this planning board might have with us becoming a member of your community and becoming a resident here. With that being said, yeah, I'll do that. I'm just going to keep this in mind. No. So I'm second generation. Like I said, the company was started in 1978. You'll look on the second page of this, the third page of this, you'll see how our company's broken down. We've got the 3 operating units. We've got a logistics division. My corporate headquarters are in Lynn, Massachusetts. I've got the fleet and warehousing division. That's the one that's going to be moving into your town, if allowed. And then we have our freight brokerage division as well, which is also off-site. We're one company, and again, the corporate name is ADCO Incorporated, but my fleet's name is Spinning Wheels Express. I'll just skip over go right to page 4 if you want, to where we start talking about what our Spinning Wheels Express fleet services are. And in particular, I'm not going to bore you with a lot of these details, but we're a well-run trucking company. We're a $20 million company, and we've been doing the right things for a long time, which is why we've been successful. If you look also, you'll find on page 8 all our major primary contact information, our numbers, our addresses, our phone numbers. Page 9 has all our main corporate people associated with the Spinning Wheels Express fleet. On page 10, I'm just going to briefly touch upon some points I want to make out in our insurance to, again, give you a flavor of our company. Things like, for example, we have a pollution liability policy of $1 million. That's an optional insurance policy. It's not required by the Department of Transportation or the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. We also have, under the liability insurance, we have a $5 million policy, and the legal minimum is $1 million. Under cargo insurance, the legal minimum is $100,000. We have $1 million. So I'm just expressing this to you, some of these points, to give you a feel that we're not, I don't want to say a bottom feeder, but we're not a low-end trucking company. We're a high-end trucking company. All our trucks are leased through Ryder, the power units, so they're all maintained out of Dracut, Massachusetts. And they are flipped every 3 to 4 years, so it's all new equipment. I own the trailers that we have, 62 trailers. Those trailers, 11 of those are reefer units. and the rest are dry vans, 53-foot dry vans. They're all logoed with our names on it. And what I'd like to do now, if it's acceptable to you folks, is have Neil come up here and just briefly go over the more operational details of our fleet so that everyone's on board, you know exactly how we operate and what we do, and what we're planning on doing if we're allowed to come here. Is that all right? It's real brief, it's a one-page
Board doesn't
handout.
mind?
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
Yeah, thank you.
My name is Neil McIsaac. I'm the Director of Operations for Spinning Wheels. So the company ADCO started in 1978. We started the trucking company in 1989. So as a trucking company, we've been around for 30 years. We run 23 total tractors. 15 of these tractors are over the road. The over-the-road guys are typically gone like 3 to 5 days per week, and we have 48 state authority. 8 tractors are local. They usually leave out in the morning and return late in the afternoon during the week. We have 64 53-foot trailers. 53 of those trailers are dry vans, 11 are reefer trailers, and we typically have about 25 to 35 trailers on site at any given time. We have 5 full-time employees in the office. Some drivers may be leaving out or returning to our facility during off hours. Most of our drivers, they prefer not to drive late at night, so typically they're back during the daylight hours. We do have our hazardous materials certificate, which represents only about 5% of what we haul. We do not handle dangerous goods like radioactive, explosives, or hazardous waste. And like mostly what we haul are adhesives, which are used for gluing floors and pool chemicals. Like Jason said, we have $1 million in pollution policy. We won't be warehousing hazardous materials. And all the maintenance for our trucks are done at Ryder, off-site. We might do some basic trailer maintenance, like changing tires, adjusting brakes, airing up tires, and things like that. And we have very good safety scores, well above average with the DOT. And we are members of the Trucking Association of Massachusetts, the American Trucking Association, and the National Motor Freight Traffic Association. So, did you guys have any questions for us, or?
Basically, at this point, we just want you to know us and how we operate, and then within the next couple of weeks, we're gonna have to come to a decision of whether or not we can move forward here or not. And if there are any like major objections, I'm not asking you to voice them now, but how does the process work with your town? This is what I need to learn.
So my name is Jen Rowden. I serve as the advisory circuit rider planner for the town. I sort of act as a very part-time town planner for Newton. I would be happy to meet with you at some point if it would be helpful to go through what the legal processes are for trying to do the different scenarios you may be considering, the, you know, going into one of the buildings and maybe trying to wait for another building to be built. There are time lags with what state noticing requirements and applications and what the planning board, how quickly they can act on things. So I would be happy to sit down with you and go through that process. It at least gives you some time frames to understand, because it can't happen overnight like anything else. Doesn't mean it's not doable. But if that will help you in your planning process, that's something that I help the town to do, to see if there's anything within the zoning that may be another loophole you may have to go through potentially. There may just be a straight site plan application that would need to be filed, and depending on a few variables, that may be the only thing that's necessary to construct a building. A site plan approval would need to be built with the landowner's permission, regardless if you have an intent to purchase. So I can help you understand at least what those processes are.
I don't want to make any unintentional mistakes, is
Yep,
really what it boils down to.
It makes it much more, usually for most applicants, more cost-effective to come in and understand what they'll have to go through at the outset so that you're not caught and surprised.
Right.
You know, halfway through the process of a time frame or a regulation or a permit that you may need. In the middle of things, it's better to know it up front, and that can help you make your decision. I suspect the town would be, you know, the right business. They certainly like to have the right kind of business in town. But ultimately, I'm just advisory to the planning board. It would be their decision, but I can certainly sit down with you and at least help you understand what approvals you would need.
Okay, all right, we'll definitely do that.
How soon do you think you could meet with us? We have to make a decision soon.
I can give you my contact information. We can try and
Okay.
schedule something for the next week or two.
That'd be perfect.
Probably won't be before that, but,
That's fine.
okay.
All right, thank you for your time, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. In that case, we have, the only thing remaining is that we have a non-public under 91-A, column 3, Roman numeral 2, subsection C, regarding a leave of absence. And I have a motion.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. I'll simply announce for everybody here that we will adjourn after the non-public.
Right. You need to poll the board.
That's what I'm going to do. Mr. White? Yea or nay?
Yay.
Mrs. White?
Yay.
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Andrews?
Yes.
Chair says yea. Vice Chair says yea. In that case, we will go into non-public. I did turn the AC on in the back room.
So we're now adjourned to go into non-public.